Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, feeling well, staying safe, and certainly hope you guys are having a great start to your week. And I appreciate you folks joining me this morning on this beautiful Monday morning. Well, let's be positive. I know Monday's not everybody's favorite day of the week, but I try to treat it personally like any other day. But of course, it is the start of another work week if you work a regular Monday to Friday type job. But regardless, hope you guys are making the most out of it and having a great start to your morning. Let's give you an update on what's going to happen weather-wise for today. Expecting some active weather along the I-95 corridor. Some highly populated areas are going to be impacted today, kind of like yesterday. But we got some big cities today that could be under the gun, like Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Baltimore, even up to New York City, and even further southeast down to Charlotte, Columbia, Raleigh, etc. A lot of areas could be under the gun today for some nasty weather. So let's try to break it down, and we'll talk about everybody else also. But I want to let you guys know this is a tricky forecast. There's certain areas that will have a solid chance of storms today as you're waking up, but you might not get a drop of rain today. It's kind of weird. It's a weird setup, but we're going to try to give our best jab at it one more time for you folks, keep you guys aware. But I wanted to let you know, if you do happen to get a severe thunderstorm warning, a tornado warning, take it serious, because if you do get hit by one of these storms today, they're going to be quite powerful. Large hail, damaging wind being the biggest threat. So we'll break it down for you folks. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It goes a long way. Certainly appreciate all the support. I've not had a chance to read the comments from last night's video. Kind of made the video, then immediately put my phone down the rest of the night, and then went to bed really early before the sun even went down. So I'll read them this morning, then I'll read the comments from this video a little bit later on, and I'll keep you guys updated and your questions answered. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it, and so others can do so too. And it's a great way to glorify God, looking out for one another, praying to Him, and that's what it's all about. So thank y'all for creating this family type atmosphere here, and I appreciate the growth lately. Welcome to any new subscribers. It's a great family type personal atmosphere here on this channel, so welcome. Let's take a look at water vapor loop. I don't have my clicker is not wanting to work, and I did not feel like restarting my computer this morning. So we have this ridge. It's built into this region. You can actually see it pretty well. The upper region of this ridge is kind of built over the southwest, over the south central U.S. So you have a northwest flow that's actually popping off severe thunderstorms across southern Arkansas and northern Louisiana this morning. And we were kind of expecting this. We were also expecting, well, the NAM wasn't. The HRRR model really honed in on it. We have some outflow boundary driven convection ongoing in South Carolina. In fact, my neck of the woods here in central South Carolina, which is where I live, my lightning detector on my weather station just went off. So we got some storms heading our way this morning. Ain't nothing like a good morning thunderstorm to start off your week. But there is a big time moist plume of air, rising all the way up the I-95 corridor. This will set the stage for some explosive thunderstorms today. You see this little spin right here. That is our upper level low. Kind of the main driver of what's driving all this severe weather over the last couple of days. And I hope you guys are faring well out there this morning from the severe weather overnight. We had confirmed tornadoes in Indiana, had some wind damage. I think one of the comments, one of the viewers mentioned that in Arkansas they had some pretty powerful storms in certain areas of the state last night. So hope you guys are doing well. There is a chance at the upper portion of this ridge, a little bit of a moist flow at the low levels that could spark some severe storms. Also up in Wyoming, maybe portions of western South Dakota, western Nebraska. Let's talk about what's actually falling at the surface. Make sure we don't have any glitches going on. Sometimes this thing likes to glitch out on me. But we got severe warned storms, numerous severe warned storms, far northeast Texas, southern sections of Arkansas, and even one in northern Louisiana. We will see how these storms behave as they head southeast all the way down to the Gulf Coast. These are just mesoscale convective systems. This is one that's trailing off into the Gulf of Mexico, still giving areas of the western panhandle of Florida some rain this morning. But these are some powerful storms you're waking up to this morning. Hopefully they linger, except they lose their punch, because the more you can keep these storms around the later into the morning, the harder it is for it to warm up in these areas. And you guys have been just very hot in this region of the country. But it's kind of give or take, right? Do you want storms and cooler temperatures, or do you want hot temperatures with no severe storms? So a lot of times you can't get both. Sometimes you can. but a lot of times you can't. But you got flash flood warnings up here in southern Arkansas. We got a little area, and we mentioned this last night. We got an area moving through South Carolina, more so just plain rain through Virginia, North Carolina. This could have a factor on what happens here in the next several hours into this afternoon, this evening. But right now, we don't know. It's honestly what happens between after I make this video and then in the next several hours after. So this will stabilize the atmosphere somewhat, but what happens after this moves through and the atmosphere here becomes prime again behind this, we will watch. We got the spin up here. You can see this huge broad spin over Michigan. It's like the upper level low looks like it's right over the state of Michigan. You're getting some much needed rain up into the UP of Michigan, and this is riding north to south down Lake Michigan. Green Bay, you're waking up to some rain, some showers in Detroit, also Cleveland, and just a nice spin. This is some beneficial rain. Hopefully you guys are getting rain who need it up in this region, and you're waking up to some scattered downpours in New Jersey, and even some heavier rain up here in western Maine and New Hampshire, where you actually have flash flood warnings, so be careful up here. Storm Prediction Center. We have an enhanced risk for severe thunderstorms in this region. We're not going to zoom in like we did last night, but we can still see it pretty well on here for the most part. Marginal risk, which is the dark green, extends all the way from the panhandle of Florida all the way up into deep into the northeast. Okay, enhanced risk right here in the middle, slight risk right in between. That's in the yellow. The slight risk is level 2 out of 5. The orange is a level 3 out of 5. But we're going to discuss why the Storm Prediction Center thinks the biggest hail threat is down here in the Carolinas, but maybe the bigger damaging wind threat, maybe a slightly higher tornado threat is probably more so in this enhanced risk. But I don't want to ignore this area and this area. You could have some severe storms here. This might upgrade to a slight later on today. I'm expecting some more powerful storms to kind of reinitialize a little bit later this evening into Arkansas, Louisiana. We'll talk about that. And then we got a slight risk in here. Could have some hailstorms that are possible up here, even a small tornado threat here in South Dakota, Nebraska, and areas of Wyoming. But the tornado threat today, just 2% chance. But of course, we're focusing in on a lot on this. No upgrade to a 5% risk as of right now, as of around 7 a.m. Eastern time. We just have a huge 2% risk into this region. So that's a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. I know that sounds low, but I do think we're going to get a couple tornado warnings today. Wind threat. You got a 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. In this area right into here, the red region, this includes almost to Charlotte, but Raleigh, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Richmond, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, up to Philadelphia. Okay, so this is some highly populated areas in this region that have a pretty high chance with some of these storms, if you get hit, to see damaging winds. And then you've got the yellow area, which is a 15% risk of the same criteria, 50 knots or higher, 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in any given location. So wind threat. Wind damage threat extends all the way deep into the Carolinas, almost all the way to Augusta, Georgia, all the way up to Binghamton, New York State. So the hail threat today, this is actually shifted further south where you have better lapse rates. Lapse rates means how quick does the temperatures drop the more you climb up in the atmosphere. If they climb pretty quick, then you have better lapse rates, which supports higher CAPE levels and basically a higher chance for hail, especially large hail. And I think you're going to have some storms that are going to produce some big-time hailstorms. This includes Columbia, up to Charlotte, Hickory, Winston-Salem, all these regions right in here, almost up to Roanoke. You have a 10% risk in this hatched area of seeing significant hail, which is 2-inch in diameter or larger. I expect severe thunderstorm watches to get issued into this region later this afternoon. 15% risk of hail in general, exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. This extends from Columbia all the way up to Philadelphia and everybody in between. Got to watch this area too. You not only have a 15% risk of hail, but a hatched risk of hail, which is that 10% risk of 2 inch in diameter or larger hail. I don't want to ignore this too. I could see this getting bumped up to a slight risk in this region. Don't hold me to it, but watch out, my folks in Louisiana and Arkansas. We'll talk about you guys a little bit too. There is a chance for flash flooding in this yellow region. There is a 15% risk, as you can tell. The yellow, 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles in any given location. So some of these storms that will just repeatedly go over the same areas could present a flooding risk. So please be careful. Watches and warnings, the storyline continues to be the extreme heat down here in Texas, even into areas of southern Oklahoma and Arkansas, Mississippi. This is now getting extended all the way to the western panhandle of Florida, where you have excessive heat warnings. The heat index will be well over 105, maybe all the way up to 110, in some cases 115 degrees today. Air temperatures, well into the 90s, low 100s. But when you factor in that humidity, which creates a heat index that is, could be 10 to 20 degrees above the actual air temperature, it becomes very uncomfortable and downright dangerous in these areas. So these are actually excessive heat watches in the burgundy color, excessive heat warnings in the more of this purple color right here, and then this pink, that is severe thunderstorm watches, which are current, and heat advisories in the orange. Flood watch is up ahead of numerous rounds of showers and storms in eastern PA and several counties in New York State and New Jersey. And you got flood watches that are continuing up in Montana, and 2 large counties in Washington State have flood watches. Let's talk about the Southeast first. All right, we always take a broad look at this, and we'll go over the next 24 hours really quick, and you just get a good idea who's going to see storms. You'll see some storms here, and all across right here. So we go through the morning hours, not a whole lot's going on. We get into the afternoon, not a whole lot's going on. But here comes the showers and storms that begin to fire up east of the Apps. And you even got some storms down in South Georgia, powerful storms firing up here in North Carolina. And you keep these going. And I really think these grow upscale as you get into the evening hours into the Eastern Carolinas. If you live in the Eastern Carolinas, I would really watch out after the sun goes down tonight. I really would. And I think these storms fire up in southern Arkansas and northern Louisiana again later into the overnight hours. I mean, this is getting into like well after midnight. You get some potential for some powerful storms, large hail, damaging wind threat. The fires up in Mississippi, central Mississippi, southern Arkansas, drifts into northern Louisiana, maybe eventually all the way in Alabama. Okay, so that's a quick take, but you zoom into each area, and this is what I'm talking about. Not a whole lot goes on this afternoon, this evening. You're getting all the way into about 7 o'clock. This isn't most of this area is in Central Time, so back this up 1 hour, so we're at 7 p.m., not 8 p.m. And then bang, big powerful storm pops up just outside of Little Rock, and these quickly will kind of develop upscale, and we get to about 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and we could have some big storms waking you guys up in southern Arkansas again in the wee hours of the morning. You're probably getting that happening right now in this region. And then these could extend all the way into central Mississippi. These could be in southern Mississippi. But be careful, if you're in southern areas of Arkansas, northern areas of Louisiana, all the way to Jackson, Mississippi, central Mississippi, Meridian, Mississippi. You guys could see some powerful storms well after midnight tonight that sweep through and might begin to lose some steam as we make our way into tomorrow morning. But be aware of this area. Most of this action is happening right now. Nothing will happen between a period between this morning all the way throughout the afternoon and evening hours, and then more storms will fire up this evening, late this evening into the overnight hours. So let's talk about what's going to happen today. We'll talk about the ingredients really quickly. This is mixed layer CAPE. This is that fuel to the atmosphere here these storms fuel off of. And you notice we'll start off this morning, not a lot of fuel to the atmosphere. These storms down here are really being driven off outflow. You don't even have a lot of available CAPE, available energy in the atmosphere here for these storms to even really keep going here in South Carolina. You make our way into about mid to late morning. You see the atmosphere here down here recovering. You got CAPE building in, and CAPE levels rising to well over 1,500 joules per kilogram. And then by the time you get into about middle part to late afternoon, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, look at this CAPE building right off the east side of the Appalachian Mountains here in North Carolina. CAPE values are spiking in and around the Lincolnton area, Hickory area to 2,000 joules per kilogram. I think you'll have some big storms fire up right in here that immediately produce some large hail in the upstate of South Carolina, western and central North Carolina. You got high CAPE levels building into the low country of South Carolina. And you can tell it's eating away at these storms. There's some storms exploding right in here, but you got scattered areas of CAPE values that are probably going to reach between 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram. So, big time CAPE building into Delaware, Maryland, eastern PA. So think of this as just energy in the atmosphere here, ready for these storms to take advantage of. If you keep going here, a lot of Kate builds into eastern areas of North Carolina, the PD of South Carolina. And this is basically prime energy waiting for storms to explode off the forcing from this mid-level jet streaking across this area, creating these forcing for these storms in this upper level low up here. And then you're going to get probably a more organized area of storms that gets going anywhere from the Delmarva area all the way to the eastern Carolinas and sweeps through and eats up all that energy. And so there's going to be some energy. I would argue you're probably going to get more energy in this that fires up. But I can tell you the models are not agreeing with this. But this is lapse rates. I don't show you this much. But basically, the more, I wouldn't say brighter, but the more vibrant these colors are, like these reds, the better the lapse rates are. So it's in Celsius per kilometer. So it's basically indicating these more dull colors, you got lower lapse rates. These more brighter colors, you get into the kind of the orange and yellows and the reds. These are the areas where the temperatures are cooling quicker the higher up you go in the atmosphere here, indicating better lapse rates. So what I'm starting this off around late morning. They are getting pretty high in this region, east of the mountains, the Appalachian Mountains here, northeast Georgia, all the way into the Piedmont, the foothills of North Carolina, including upstate South Carolina. So I think, as we make our way, I think some big storms will explode here. But you notice you get into Virginia, it's not as good anymore. I would say a day or so ago, this was looking much higher up in Virginia, but not anymore. I would say it's because maybe the axis of this mid-level the jet has shifted a little bit. But in general, I think your biggest hail threat, and this is why they have shifted the hail threat down here into the Carolinas. But you're going to get hail also in Virginia, but you're definitely have an atmosphere that supports large hail with these supportive lapse rates in this region. You look at the winds aloft, several thousand, 10, 20, 30,000 feet up in the air. This is basically around where the jet sits. The jet sits a little bit higher, but these are winds about 500 millibars. And, the exit region of this jet right in here, you're definitely going to have the potential with some veering with height, meaning basically there's a change in direction with height in the atmosphere here. But there's not going to be much. You need a really sudden shift and a very small amount of section in the atmosphere here. We call it basically if in the lower areas of the atmosphere, like just several thousand feet up, which relatively speaking is not very high up. If the direction of the winds shifts pretty dramatically, that means you definitely got some big time directional shear in the lower levels of the atmosphere here that supports a tornado threat. You're not going to really have that anywhere, but you do have a stout wind field, 40 to 50 knot mid-level jet streaking across the Carolinas, even areas of Virginia. So this is going to support, I really think, a big wind threat later in the eastern Carolinas. And that's why you have this linear look that's showing up on what I'm about to show you here, with a big line of storms developing in the eastern Carolinas. And let's go on and talk about that here. So here we go. We'll start off this morning. The lingering convection, shower, and storm activity will eventually kind of fade away. If you're confused about what time frame we're at, this is all in Eastern time. So 2 p.m., 3 p.m., some big storms try to fire up. We'll focus more on Virginia, Maryland here in a second. Let's really talk about the Carolinas here, and we'll talk about Virginia somewhat here too. But big storms fire up in Virginia, the foothills, mountains of Virginia right into here. These are going to be producing hail right off the dot. Look at this small cell in and around the Raleigh area. Immediately gets strong. Big cell pops up here. And, this is around 5 o'clock. There is a nasty looking, got to wonder if this is a supercell. Remember, a rotating thunderstorm. But this is a nasty looking hailstorm popping up based off one run of the HRRR model just outside the Charlotte area, just northwest of Charlotte, just north of Gastonia, right on top of Lincolnton. And then these continue, and you're thinking, well, what's going on in South Carolina? It's not a whole lot. You could just as well be getting severe thunderstorms in South Carolina. But will you get any kind of storm development that gets going? Okay, northeast Georgia, upstate South Carolina, even though you got ingredients to support thunderstorm development, will you get anything that actually develops? So you get into 8 p.m., you're thinking, well, Greenville, Spartanburg's not really getting anything. And you might not. And I mentioned that at the beginning of the video. You guys might not get a drop of rain. Somebody might not get a drop of rain when they're calling for a solid chance of storms today. It's just going to be kind of one of those days. But you got scattered convection up here in Virginia. Nothing super organized based off this run. This is around 7, 8, 9 p.m. But these could very well be more organized than what they're showing. There could be some storms in Kentucky that could eventually drift into West Virginia. But these storms could be quite powerful. Around 8 p.m. right here in central North Carolina. There could be widespread storms, more so in South Carolina. That's not really showing up here. And then as we get to about 10 p.m., you get some convection that really pops off here in central South Carolina. And when I'm saying this, guys, this might not be the way it irons out. It was kind of like that in this yesterday evening's video. I was kind of everywhere. And it's just because these storms, they're not really, they're going to be hard to figure out. What I'm the most confident in, what I am the most confident on with is the fact that you're probably going to get a more organized cluster of storms from the Delmarva region, Eastern Virginia, all the way to the Eastern Carolinas that gets going later in the evening after the sun goes down. So if you're in Myrtle Beach for, Wilmington, the Outer Banks, anybody in this region, even Charleston, you're going to have some nasty storms late into the evening. You very well could still have storms ongoing still in Eastern Georgia. And then, but I'm pretty confident you're going to have a pretty nasty line of storms that's going to make its way across the Eastern Carolinas, across the Delmarva regions, coastal regions of Maryland, Southeast Virginia, and sweeps eventually out into the Atlantic Ocean and done with it. But it's going to be tough. We back it up. Are we going to have some storms that fire in the Greenville-Spartanburg area, Northeast Georgia, where into this region where you do have that slight risk? It's a big question, but don't look at this and say, okay, well, Mitch says Greenville-Spartanburg area is not going to get one storm today. But listen, this is just one model run, and I always will reiterate that, guys. And this is a tricky setup. Trying to pinpoint where storms will form. My folks up here in the Mid-Atlantic and areas of southern New England, this is a little bit more confident of a forecast because you're closer to the upper level low, and you're going to have numerous rounds of showers and storms. In fact, you take it all the way to about midday, lunchtime, 1 p.m., you already got a lot of scattered convection ongoing in and around the Scranton area, the southern sections of New York State, northern New Jersey is popping off already. These could be severe, but I would say once you get into the late afternoon hours, you could have more organized area storms. It really wants to hit this area around Scranton, northeast PA, the southern tier in this region of New York State multiple times. But I mean, look, Maryland, West Virginia, I'm freezing this at 6 p.m. Scattered convection, shower, and storm activity out in PA. Storms are possible anywhere in Pennsylvania. Maryland, you got Washington, D.C., you got some storms knocking on your door. More organized line of storms developing around 8 p.m. in eastern PA, but you got an area of decently organized storms right here in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia and western Maryland. Storms are firing right here in northern VA, but nothing is really consolidated. It's just somewhat more organized in other areas. But if you're in New York City, watch out for some storms probably later in the evening after the sun goes down, but you're probably going to get a chance for some storms later in the afternoon too here. I could see this big cluster of showers and storms much more organized in the coastal regions of Maine, Delmarva region as we get into later in the evening. But this is really fast forwarded a little bit more in time. I would say 2 days ago, this was looking like this was going to roll through this area more so in the afternoon and evening hours. Nice morning rumble of thunder that's ongoing right now. So it's so nice and peaceful to hear sometimes, especially when they're not severe warm storms, But this rolls through the Delmarva area. Expect a lot of rain, frequent lightning, gusty winds, the potential for damaging winds, and so definitely be aware. But you get into about 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Watch out, Connecticut. You could certainly see some storms overnight tonight, Long Island. And you're probably left over with a little convection here in this region of the Mid-Atlantic. So I know that's everywhere, guys. This is a tricky forecast. It really is. It's very hard to nail down. But just know, pay attention to your local folks. Have a way to look at a radar. And just know if you're in that slight, enhanced, even marginal risk today, you stand a good chance to see a good, solid, severe storm or two out there. But there's also a chance you might not get a drop of rain. The rest of the Northeast, we already discussed a severe weather threat here, but I'm going to tell you all the way up into New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, you guys could get some storm action too. Pretty much everybody in the state of New York, especially Vermont, but also New Hampshire. Some storms are possible up here into Canada. You could have a round of storms that moves out of the U.S. into the Canada. And here's that upper level low right into here spinning away. You got showers and storms wrapping around. So Ohio, PA, West Virginia, Northern Kentucky, all these regions. With this upper level low, this will be more so cooler, kind of, I guess you can say, cold core storms, but nothing really severe with this back in Michigan, Ohio with this round. Just scattered downpours are possible throughout the day, throughout the evening. You make your way into the overnight hours. You could have some more organized clusters of storms making its way through New England and waking up to some scattered downpours are possible in Maine tomorrow, and then maybe another area of showers making its way out of eastern Ohio into western PA as we're waking up tomorrow morning. The south central U.S., pretty chill. Not a whole lot going on. Until you get into this afternoon, this evening, you could have a severe storm or two in extreme eastern and northeastern areas of New Mexico and western areas of Texas and the panhandle of Oklahoma. But you know, it looks like a very conditional threat, so I'm not expecting any kind of widespread severe outbreak kind of scenario. But we already talked about this in Arkansas and things like that overnight tonight. We'll watch for that. But outside of that, you know, calm, just very hot day in the south central U.S. And speaking of the hot temperatures, well over 100 degrees for, I would say, 75% of Texas. Unfortunately, very hot even in eastern Texas where you have more so humidity, more so a dry heat in western Texas. But, you know, you look at the heat index for these regions, guys, and, you know, it's definitely not comfortable. We'll take it all the way to about the hottest part of the day. And unfortunately, you have heat index. The heat index is well over 110 degrees all the way into Mississippi, you know, almost all of Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and, you know, eastern and even southern sections of Oklahoma. The heat index is well over 100, 105 degrees. So please take the heat serious today. You guys have been doing it for the last about week and a half, 2 weeks. So stay cool out there. Sorry, guys. You know, some people have commented and say, Mitch, please cool the temperatures down. I don't control the weather. If I did, you guys would probably hate me because it would probably snow a lot more than what people would like. You know, for you folks who've been viewing for a while, you guys know the winter weather is my favorite to talk about and just my favorite weather in general by far. A north central U.S., you'll begin to slowly lose the influence of this upper level low. But this will still continue to push showers through the UP and Michigan. I would say the western UP, not as much shower activity today, if any at all. But, you know, extreme eastern sections of Wisconsin will still deal with the showers. And, of course, we already mentioned Michigan. You guys will probably deal with on and off showers throughout the day. Some showers can make it as far south as Chicago, northeast Illinois, northern sections of Indiana, and then temper away. But as we get into the overnight hours, wee hours of the morning, we'll watch for some severe storms overnight tonight in western areas of South Dakota, southwest South Dakota. And these will move through and turn into more just congealed area rain for basically the entire southern half of South Dakota. You could be waking up to some rain, including northern Nebraska. Speaking of the northern plains with a severe weather threat, you know, I think it's kind of a conditional threat, but you could have a powerful storm or two up here in northern sections of Wyoming, but you could just as well be getting some strong storms here further in southeast Wyoming. But watch out. Storm right here looks pretty intense here in the far northeast corner of Wyoming. But just be careful with some storms today. These storms could be, you know, strong up here in southeast Montana. So be aware of some storm activity in this region today. These will eventually drift into the western Dakotas. Montana will get some scattered showers into this region and so forth. But, you know, watch out as you get later into the overnight hours. These could actually get more intense, potentially, in Wyoming and South Dakota. But the rest of the Rockies, it is going to be quite rainy and stormy today. Look how all this heavy rain and storm activity kind of explodes. So I stop it here. This is around 5 p.m. Western time, Rocky time out here, give or take an hour. You got showers showing in Washington State, central and eastern Oregon. The northern half of Nevada has a good chance of some showers, maybe a storm. You know, it seems like the rain always loves this area of southwest Montana and this area right here in Idaho, but some heavy rain is possible. Northern sections of Wyoming, like we just mentioned, could see some storm activity. And you keep this going throughout the late evening hours, overnight hours, and then it loses its steam, but could have some rain that continues to linger around basically where Oregon, Washington State, and Idaho meet. You look at the temperatures today, it's thundering like crazy at my house. Gonna have to look at the radar as soon as I get done with this video. It's going to stay cooler in the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region, where you are under the influence of this upper level low. Temperatures only in the 60s and 70s. Enjoy. It's always a nice day in the summer when your temperatures only get in the 60s and 70s. If you're into that kind of stuff like I am, the Southeast very hot ahead of these storms. Temperatures will rise quickly into the 90s today. 60s and 70s in the Northeast, but of course the South Central U.S. is baking in the 90s and 100s. The upper sections of the country, the plains, northern plains, 70s and 80s. Temperatures out west, still cooler than average in this little pocket right into here. The Southwest is still cooler than average. You're warming up in the desert Southwest, but this is still nothing unusual. You're well into the hundreds into the desert Southwest. Pretty warm into the lower elevations of Washington State. But, of course, this is a little bit above average, but nothing too crazy. But stay safe today with the weather. God bless all y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. And I'll answer all comments throughout the day today, so I don't want to leave you hanging. God bless all y'all. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.